What's up, everybody? Welcome into a new episode of the Rapala We Are Collegiate Bass Podcast. ICAST taking place just last month in Orlando, Florida. Always a good time. Big event for the fishing industry. New products, opportunity to talk with anglers, representative from brands, and get an idea what's to come over this next year, the new trends, all of that. So today, sponsor of the podcast and the Collegiate Bass Fishing Series partner, Rapala. We've got Kobie Koenig, photo and video content manager here, just to kind of walk us through what he's seeing out in the field and break down these baits that Rapala announced they're coming into ICAST. We had the chance to see some of them on the floor there in Orlando. Some really cool stuff. One of the biggest things, obviously, in fishing right now, forward-facing sonar, live scope, urchin, and dice-style baits. Crush City coming out with the CEO, entering that market of lures and products. Kobie, talk about that bait right now real quick, and maybe kind of the importance that Rapala stressed in adding a little bit of dimension to that bait.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on today. The CEO is obviously a bait that we just had to come out with. It's been under production now for the last year or two, and we just wanted to make sure that we got it right. We could have came out with it last year, and we needed to make sure that it was ready to hit the market and different than everybody else's. So the biggest thing that we did was there's a couple main challenges with an urchin style bait. The biggest one would be castability, and then the second would be easy enough to rig for the general consumer. So we kind of came up with a couple of different cool things. Number one being a weighted glass powder. So the bait right out of the box is ready to go. You don't have to throw a nail weight in if you don't want to. All you got to do is literally just thread on a hook, cast it out, and catch bass. So that weighted glass powder obviously gives the bait a little bit more weight to it. You're able to cast it further, and then, like I said, holds up super well without having a nail weight in it, and you can just catch a bunch of bass on it. Have fun. You don't have to do all the crazy rigging that some of these people are coming up with. So that was obviously a bait that we needed to have, and the CEO definitely fills that market.
There's no perfect answer to this next question, and I think a lot of people have probably heard it or asked it themselves. You yourself out in the field gathering content, obviously in on some product development as well, but you see that bait in use, whether maybe it's underwater or just from above the surface in a boat, watching somebody else fish with it. Kind of characterize what you think the fish think that bait is. What is it mimicking? What is it representing? Or is it just so crazy they want to eat it and get it out of the way?
Right. Yeah, no, that's, I guess, the biggest thing. Like, you show this bait off to somebody, even in fishing, but definitely people outside of fishing, they don't even they can't even comprehend what this thing looks like underwater. And it's actually really cool. Like you said, I've shot a bunch of underwaters of it, and it just moves so much water. I think that's one of the biggest things. I can't tell you exactly what this thing looks like, or what it's trying to mimic. We've always, as fishermen, talked about matching the hatch. I don't know exactly what we're trying to match there with this bait, but it moves a ton of water, I will say. You can actually see the water disturbance when you snap it. And so I don't know if that's just what it is. It gets bass just in a type of mood that I've never seen before. But I would say the smaller one. So in the CEO, we have a 21 millimeter and then a 15 millimeter. And the 15 millimeter is more your dice style bait. And I've definitely seen that, especially with smallmouths up north. I'm from Minnesota, so we're in dice country up here. And it definitely mimics more of a bug profile. A dice style works super well from June into, I would say, late August, early September, when the fish are definitely feeding up more on bugs and, just things floating in the water. And then as we get into, the later parts of the year, they definitely get more on a minnow. So that would be my biggest takeaway on the small ones. The big ones, I don't really know. I don't have an answer for you. But I do know from shooting underwaters that the amount of water that this bait moves is pretty incredible.
One last question on this style of bait as we talk about the new CEO from Crush City and Rapala. You talked about the size, the diameter there. Talk a little bit about maybe what you've seen or haven't seen in the way that fish react to the color. Does it need to be more natural? You've seen different color spectrums throughout the years in terms of soft plastics. Is this something that's just so crazy it doesn't matter what it looks like, they're going to eat it, or do you really need to pinpoint it and dial it in to get the right color, as you stated earlier, where you programmed to match the hatch? Does this need to look as realistic as possible with your greens and clear water and darker colors and muddy, or does it really matter what's tied on? It just needs to be an urchin of some kind.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. From just a fishing standpoint, I've seen green pumpkins work the best out of anything. That's just my personal experiences with the bait. That being said, underwater we have a bunch of really cool colors coming out. So there's a technology that we kind of came up with this year in a couple of different of our baits. The first one being the inspector worm, and we did a core shot, which allows us to do a bunch of really cool looking colors. So it's something that we've never done before in our other Crush City baits, and we came up with it this year in the inspector, and then we knew that we needed to, kind of add the same technology into the CEO. So I'm thinking as these fish, this craze has been so insane the last year or two with the urchins, and they'll kind of just eat anything the bass will. And I'm guessing as they see more urchin baits, they get more pressure and get more used to this bait. I'm guessing that those unique colors are going to come into play more. So we have a bunch of really cool, like clearish white ones. I know that guys have been starting to use. Bank Shaw and Fisher and I are loving some of our new colors. But also it's really hard to beat a green pumpkin blue, scuppernong, that kind of stuff.
One bait you hit on there in your response to that question, the inspector, that's where we're going to transition to next. More of just your kind of standard finesse style worm. Talk about what maybe makes it a little different than your standard finesse style worm, and why Rapala Crush City wanted to add this particular bait to the lineup.
Yeah, for sure. So a couple years ago, we came out with the janitor, which was our first straight tail worm, and obviously awesome bait, kind of a do-all, but and I've shot a lot with Jacob Wheeler, and trying to get inside of the mind of Jacob Wheeler is something that I try to capture through all my video work. But it's really hard to do because he's going a million miles an hour. But he knew that we needed something a little bit more finesse than the janitor, something a little bit more streamlined, thin, that had a ton of action without even imparting anything into the bait. Shooting the underwaters, both out in the field and we have a testing tank at the Rapala headquarters where I shoot a bunch of my tank stuff. And you literally don't even have to move the rod, and this tail's going pretty wicked under the water. So that was one of the biggest things, is he wanted something super streamlined, super thin, but also big enough to put a nail weight in it. So you'll notice, for people that look up this bait, that the nose is just a little bit thicker than the rest of the body, so you can stick a nail weight in it still. So you can Nico rig it, but then also throw it on a drop shot, throw it on a shaky head, that kind of stuff. So still a do-all, similar to the janitor, but a little bit more streamlined, thinner profile.
Definitely sounds like one you're going to want in your tackle box. Kind of real quick, on finishing up on the inspector, styles for rigging of which you might apply it. Is it just as standard as drop shots, shaky heads? Add anything there that might apply that you've seen people do with it?
Yeah. Like I said, Jacob Wheeler, he tries to make every single bait that we come out with applicable for multiple techniques. So like you said, drop shot, shaky head, and then the Nico rig is definitely one that you're going to want to throw with this bait. It's got so much action. I would say it's a PVC material, so I guess I should mention that it's not TPE, so it's not floating up in the water column necessarily, but still great on a drop shot, shaky head. And then the Nico rig is just the bait that I see having the most action with this worm. It's pretty unbelievable underwater.
Talking about fads, things that have been popular over the last couple of years, there was a little right before the urchins. I feel like glide baits they've been around forever. They've been popular forever, but they got real trendy there within the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And you're seeing pros at different levels just lock that in their hand and go catch 5 big bass. Obviously, the allure to an angler to want to go do that. Talk a little bit about the PXR Strido 180 and just your general thoughts and what you've seen from it out in the field as well.
Yeah, this thing is pretty unbelievable. I shot the product video for this with Carl Jochimson. Carl had a bunch of input on this bait. This is his baby. And I went and shot this product video with him down on Chickamauga in March, I believe. It was right after the Bassmaster Classic. I went straight from Knoxville over to Carl's place, and we went out on Chickamauga. And for most people, they understand Chickamauga is not an easy place to catch a bass. And we went out. It was windy. It was snowing. There was crazy weather, and we pulled into a creek, and it was the craziest half hour of bass fishing I've ever seen. He caught 2 8s and a 5-pounder on like a 100-yard stretch on the Strida, and that it was unbelievable. And those fish out there don't eat just anything, and so that kind of proved to me, at least, and definitely proved to Carl that this thing was ready to hit the market. So it's got a bunch of really cool features. Like you said, a glide bait is something that it's a bit of a novelty item, because they're like, you can get glide baits up to, $100, $200, $300. This thing, Carl wanted to make sure that this was an affordable bait for everybody. So sub $100. It's going to hold up. It's got a really cool plastic tail that doesn't kink. So there's a lot of high-end glide baits out there that have a paintbrush type tail. This is a plastic tail that's got even more action than a paintbrush tail, and will hold up better for sure. Rotating hook hangers are one thing that Carl definitely wanted. We have that in a couple of our new baits, and so this just gives the fish zero leverage when you hook them. Comes stock with redline treble hooks. Those things are pretty deadly. I would say the coolest thing about this bait, aside from some of the awesome colors, are it's got a new technology. It's called a screwdriver system. So it's essentially a weighting system to where out of the pack, you can fish it without a weight in it and, chop it, just under the surface. And then as you want to sink a bait down, 20, 25 feet or whatever depth you desire, you can put a nail weight or this screwdriver system weight into the belly. It just screws right in, and you can fish your glide bait down to depths that you've never been able to before without really modifying your bait.
One more bait I want to talk about, then just a couple questions about your career path and youth anglers here in a little bit. We'll do a reset. Claptail 75 and 90, different size models, and a bait that was recently released and has seen a lot of success. Talk about that, maybe the origin story of why the smaller sizes were developed and what you've seen with it, as well as the anglers go out and put it to use.
Yeah, for sure. This is, again, coming from the mind of Jacob Wheeler, the Claptail. The original Claptail was one of the biggest launches in Rapala history. And it's such a cool bait. Obviously, plopper style baits have been around for a few years, but Jacob wanted to figure out how to make it different than everybody else's. And he came up with this insane design. Like, you look at a picture of this thing or see it underwater and you're like, what the heck is going on? So it's a metal blade hitting the metal tail of the Claptail. So makes a ton of noise underwater and just calls fish from a long ways away. And so with the massive success year one of the Claptail 110, we knew we had to come out with smaller sizes. And so I'm really excited for the 75 and the 90, especially being up in smallmouth country. Like I said, up here, I think those smaller sizes are going to play a lot more for us up in the north. But even down south, I think those smaller sizes I wouldn't overlook even for big largemouth. It's just more of a bite-sized profile, a little bit more subtle than the 110, but still just like an awesome bait. And we actually have 2 new colors in the bait as well. So just a straight black called Midnight, and then a yellow perch color. So really filling out the lineup with all 3 sizes now. Pretty excited about it.
We're talking with Kobie Koenig from Rapala, photo and video content manager. My next question is going to kind of dive a little bit into your career and what you've witnessed out on the water as you answered these questions. I found it interesting as you talk about each bait, whether it's Wheeler, DC, you mentioned Carl, different anglers' experiences out on the water, testing these baits, shooting content for Rapala, seeing all them out there. What is it like just on a daily or regular basis to be out in the field and absorb the knowledge, see these guys in their natural element and going out and put this stuff to use? Just general thoughts and comments on seeing some of the best in the sport go out and hone their craft.
Yeah, it's pretty surreal, honestly. Like if you tell 15-year-old Kobie Koenig that he's going to be in the boat with all the best bass anglers in the world, I'd tell you you're crazy. So, yeah, it's kind of a pinch me moment every time that I get to be in the boat with these guys. The wealth of knowledge that every single one of our anglers have is unbelievable. Like you said, Jacob Wheeler, Dustin Connell, Carl Jocumsen, Seth Fighter, Bank Shaw, Fisher, and I, we have an unbelievable pro staff. And being able to pick the brains of these guys, just for me as I love fishing on my own free time, so getting to learn from these guys, but sharing it through a camera lens is something that I take a lot of pride in. And these guys have just a wealth of knowledge, so it's pretty darn cool. They have definitely certain little tips and techniques that they hold close to their chest, but I try to pry it out of them for the general consumers. We try to do a bunch of how-to videos, and we work with a bunch of different partners as well to try to get as much information out there to help the general angler out with different things that these guys are doing. So that's one thing that I take a lot of pride in as the video guy at Rapala, but it's an unbelievable experience getting in the boat with these guys.
In preparation for this interview, we emailed back and forth with yourself and Matt up there with Rapala, and there's some mention that you're familiar with some of the college anglers. This obviously the Rapala We Are Collegiate Bass Podcast. We're talking to the college guys. We run the Bass Pro Shops Collegiate Bass Fishing Series, of which some names that I'm familiar with from back home: Easton Fothergill, Nick Dumke, competed for University of Montevallo at the time, and then also just kind of want to dovetail in as we're talking about y'all's pro staff. You mentioned Fisher and Naya, Bank Shaw. Some of them maybe not. I don't know that Fisher competed in college, just went straight to the pro ranks, but young anglers in their same right. Talk a little bit about what you've seen in terms of whether you're at events, shooting footage, or even just associating with people across the industry, youth anglers, these college guys in particular, that go on to go into the professional ranks or the industry in their early 20s. Just speak to a little bit of what you've seen or have been impressed with by them and their abilities.
Yeah, they're unbelievable. So I'm 25 years old now, and it feels weird, honestly, getting in the boat with Fisher, because he's several years younger than me. I've never experienced that before. I've always been the young guy in the boat. So getting in the boat with Fisher or Banks, or like you said, I grew up with Easton and Nick. We're from the same hometown. Unbelievable anglers, and I think it speaks to how much time these young guys are putting in on the water. It's unbelievable how good they are at such a young age. And I think a lot of times they get a bad rap, honestly, with forward-facing sonar, and a lot of people think that they need that technology to catch them. I assure you that is not the case. Those guys can turn it off, go out and catch bass just as well without it. And I think it's just because they spend so much time on the water and they treat it as a full-time job. Not to say that people didn't do that, 20, 30 years ago, but these kids are so committed to the sport. And this is all they want to do. And it really shows, Fisher went straight from high school to the pros, but Fisher's been homeschooled since he was 15 years old. Because all he wanted to do was go out and learn how to catch a bass on Lake Gunnersville. So I think that just shows the commitment that a lot of these young anglers have. You see Dylan and Carter Nutt, obviously they fished a bunch of your guys' stuff. now fishing the Elite Series and the Bass Pro Tour next year. Like, there is a big wave of kids coming up that are going to dominate the sport for years to come.
Kobie, I appreciate it here with your time today. Definitely your comments there at the end talking about these college anglers. They are the future of the sport, and they're doing a lot of things to move the needle forward, yourself included in that similar demographic as our recent graduates. We appreciate your time here today, what you're doing at Rapala, getting the word out, promoting the brands across the Rapala family as well as the products tied to them as we talked about here today on the show. Thanks again for your time. We appreciate it greatly, and we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
Of course, yeah. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
I've never been so excited to release a bait that has such a unique action, unique sound, and it catches freaking biggins.
We've all heard the term size matters, and it does.
Dude, look at this.
I ain't saying it gets bigger bites, but it kind of does.